Hi, I'm Jenna, 31, and these weren't just paintings. They were my grandma's voice on canvas. If family has ever treated your treasures like trash, comment where you're watching from and subscribe. Here's how a $200 declutter turned into a 1/7 problem. The shelf was empty. 4 canvases gone. A Venmo ping on his phone said, $200 art. That's how I learned my history had been traded for gas money and takeout. My keys were still dangling from the lock when I asked, "Where are they?" He didn't look up from the screen. He just shrugged like he'd tossed out a cracked mug. Ugly paintings. Decluttering. My mouth tasted like dust. Ugly? Those were my grandmother's, sunlight caught in oil, her quiet afternoons pressed into linen. I could still smell the faint blend of linseed and old cedar whenever I took them down to wipe the frames. I'd promised myself I'd get them properly hung in the new place, away from the damp. I'd promised myself I'd keep them safe. My promise meant less than his shrug. Tell me you didn't sell them. My voice came out flatter than I felt, as if the panic needed a narrow door to fit through. It's stuff, Jenna. We needed space. You never even look at them. He pushed his phone into his pocket like evidence, like I was the one snooping. Besides, 200 is 200. 200 for 4 canvases, $50 each. A number so small it felt like an insult pretending to be math. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from my neighbor, Mo. Hey, random, but is Eric selling your art? Attached was a screenshot from Marketplace. Vintage paintings. Set of 4. The thumbnail punched me in the chest. The frames were mine. The little nick on the lower right corner. The soft bevel my grandma had sanded herself at the edge of the largest piece. Mo followed with another. A blurry photo taken over the hedge at 11:22 a.m. Eric on our porch, handing bubble-wrapped rectangles to a woman in a red windbreaker. I could see the blue painter's tape on the corners. I'd put it there so the glass wouldn't scrape while I hunted for proper hanging wire. I zoomed in until the pixels fell apart. Still mine. People talk about just things, but sometimes things hold your people together. Those canvases were how I remembered my grandmother's laugh, careful and bright, like she was placing a highlight on a shadow. He kept talking. Something about minimalism and finally having room for his barbell rack in this Appraiser room. I didn't catch most of it. My heartbeat was louder. The fridge motor kicked on, a tired hum. My hands shook, and the little tremor made my phone vibrate against my palm. I typed to Mo with my thumb. Can you see the buyer's name? She sent it instantly. A handle, a Jess Finds, and a profile blurb that read, Quick resell. DM for deals. A flipper, of course. I looked back at the shelf of the ghost squares where dust hadn't had time to settle. I remembered the way my grandmother's initials, AL, were penciled on one stretcher bar, half faded, half stubborn. He'd called them ugly because he couldn't see what they carried. Or maybe because it was easier to call them ugly than to admit he'd crossed a line he couldn't uncross. I want the buyer's info, I said. He rolled his eyes. It's done. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic is a scream. What I felt was colder. Precise. The kind of cold you get in museums where the air is calibrated to protect what matters. I saved Mo's screenshots, every pixel a receipt. I opened notes and wrote down the Venmo timestamp, the exact listing title, the porch pickup time, and the buyer handle. If he called them junk, an expert could call him wrong. The canvases smelled like her attic, linseed and cedar. The scent came first when you pushed open the narrow door at the top of the stairs, a hush of cool air that always felt borrowed from another decade. Saturday mornings lived up there. Dust motes floated like tiny planets in the slanted light, and my grandmother hummed to a station that crackled between Ella and the evening news, depending on where the dial landed. I'd sit cross-legged on the braided rug while she tightened canvas keys with a tiny wooden wedge, the soft tick-tick echoing through old wood. Careful fingers, Jenna, she'd say, passing me a lint-free cloth as if it were something sacred. We'd wipe frames together, me, slow and deliberate. Her, with that efficient grace people get when they've spent a lifetime doing one thing well. She laughed with her whole face. Not loud, just full. It made the windows seem to breathe. On the back of the largest canvas, along the raw pine of the stretcher bar, there were pencil marks I learned by heart. AL, half faded, half stubborn. As a kid, I thought it stood for attic left, like a secret map. Later, she told me, initials keep stories from slipping. She didn't say whose dials. I didn't ask. Some doors you leave closed, because the air behind them feels perfect. She kept a shoebox of oddities on the work table. Brittle tubes of cadmium, a shard of broken pallet with a ribbon of dried vermilion curled like a sleeping fox, a letter opener shaped like a paint knife. When she unscrewed a crusted cap, that sweet, sharp note of oil and something citrusy would rise and settle in my chest. "Paint is memory you can touch," she'd say, rubbing a knot out of my shoulder with her thumb. Careful fingers. There were 4 canvases she always returned to when we dusted. 2 landscapes that seemed to warm from within, a small study of glass on a cloth that caught the exact shiver of light, and one I called the red one, because no matter how blue the shadows were, some glow pressed through as if the sun hadn't finished speaking. "A friend painted these," she'd say, a little smile tucked at the corner of her mouth, the way people talk about a crush they keep to themselves. I'd press, of course, "What friend? From where?" And she'd tap my wrist lightly with the cloth. "A friend," she'd repeat, as if the answer was a kind of boundary. Then she'd ask me to line the frames on the floor and tell her which edges needed the gentle touch of sandpaper to stop a snag. She taught me to run my fingertip along the bevel with my eyes closed. "You don't look. You feel." When I moved out, she wrapped the 4 in brown paper and tied them with twine like a parcel of warm bread. "Keep them close," she said on the porch, hands smelling Fauve soap and citrus. "They don't like damn, I promised." I meant it. In every apartment after, they went up before the curtains, sometimes leaned on a dresser when the walls were too thin for nails, sometimes stacked on a chair like quiet company. He'd roll his eyes at the ritual. "We'll hang the real art later," he'd say, gesturing at catalogs and sales and the kind of prints that match couch pillows. "These look like clutter. Clutter is the stack of takeout menus we never toss. Clutter is the box of cords that fit nothing we own. Clutter doesn't come with letters pressed into wood grain." "Babe, real art hangs straight," he joked, tilting my canvas like a smirk. He stood there with 2 fingers on the frame, nudging it off level, then stepping back as if he'd taught gravity a lesson. "See, even the wall knows." It wasn't the first time. The lines had been rehearsed for months, just shuffled around depending on the day, no resale value. Amateur brushwork. Pinterest could do better. He'd toss them out while brushing his teeth, while lacing his gym shoes, while the kettle clicked off. Little nicks, nothing you could show a doctor, but enough to make the edges of me go sore. We were arguing about space, at least that's how it started. The spare room had always been in neutral ground. Half my books, half his gear, the 4 canvases leaning under the window like quiet witnesses. He came home with a freestanding barbell rack and measured the wall with blue tape. "If we move your... whatever," a vague hand toward the paintings, "I can finally lift it home. Makes more sense financially." "It's in window," I said. "Light is good for them. And I like them there." He laughed, the kind of laugh people use when they want you to feel naive. "Light is bad for paint, actually. Fades it, see? Amateur hour." He'd Googled one fact last week, and now wielded it like a degree. "And be honest, Jen, what are these? You can't even tell who painted them. If we brought in an appraiser, they'd say decorative, not investment. You don't bring in an appraiser to decide what a memory is worth. That's the point, memory." He opened the closet and thumped the barbell plates, satisfied with the sound of the weight. "You've got nostalgia clutter. I've got equipment that will actually get used. Maybe it's time for a grown-up decision." A grown-up decision. The words landed like a stamp of authority. I pictured my grandmother's hands, the way she'd turn a frame and blow a speck of dust from the corner. I pictured the penciled AL on the stretcher, still stubborn after decades. I pictured his blue tape slicing the air like a boundary that only cut my side of the room. He kept going. He was on a roll now, the ugly speech unspooling with all its familiar beats. "Look, I'm not saying they're bad, I'm just saying they're not good. The brushwork's messy, the colors fight, no one will buy these. They're like the thrift store stuff that sits under fluorescent lights until the store closes. You're emotionally attached. I get it. But we need to be practical." "We?" I asked. "Who's we exactly when it's my grandmother's things?" He pivoted, quick as a coach. "We pay rent together. We split utilities. We share a life. The spare room is not a museum annex. If you want a gallery, get one. Otherwise, we make room for what matters." He reached into a shopping bag and pulled out a bright neon poster board, the kind that bends if you breathe on it. He traced the letters with a marker, black bleeding into neon. "Garage sale Sunday." He brandished it like a treaty. "We can clear 3 shelves easily. Put up some shelves for my plates. Donate what doesn't sell. Win-win. Win-win, except one of us had to lose first. I said no. He said I was being stubborn. I said they were not negotiable. He said everything is negotiable. He placated. He teased. He mocked. He explained art to me as if I hadn't grown up breathing in varnish and radio static. At one point, he propped a painting on his knee and mimed a critique, pinching the air in front of it like he could pull the wrongness out with fingers. "I'm not asking you," he said finally, softer, which somehow felt harder. "I'm telling you, we're out of space." The answer is obvious. I don't remember what I replied. I remember the taste of metal in my mouth, the way my heart held still, waiting. I remember thinking of the shoebox in my grandmother's studio, the dried ribbon of vermilion, curled like a secret. He wanted a garage sale. He wanted to win an argument with a sign. A solution for him turned into a mission for me. Proof of sale. Mo's text lands like a pebble in a glass, sharp enough to crack the day. Got something. Buyer's chat. Pick up at 11:17 a.m. while you are out. I tap the screenshots open with a thumb that doesn't feel like mine. The first image is a porch cam still. Our porch, my doormat, the little coil of garden hose Eric hates. In the frame, he's half-turned, arm extended, handing over a bundle of bubble-wrapped frames. The plastic catches the noon white light in scales. The timestamp at the bottom corner is sterile and precise. 11:17:3. I was buying produce 2 streets over at 11:17. I can still smell the wet cilantro in my purse. Mo's second screenshot is the chat thread from the local resale group. The buyer's icon is a pink circle with a cursive J buyer. Can pick up at 11-ish. Cash or Venmo? Seller. Venmo works. Porch pickup. Wrap's done. A line below, like a fluorescent highlighter. A Jess finds. My mouth dries around the name. Finds what? Other people's things? I flick to the next screenshot. Another still from the porch cam. Same minute, different angle. You can see Eric's hand bracing the door. The way his fingers flatten on the white paint makes something in my chest pull tight. I know that hand. I know it when it tugs my elbow and tilts a canvas and calls it crooked. He's smiling at someone I can't fully see. Just a forearm, a stack of bracelets, a floral sleeve. And then the exchange is done. The frames are gone, swallowed by bubble wrap speckled with sun. I reopen the chat and pinch to zoom. There it is again, Jess finds. Mo's next message, click through. She's a flipper. The profile loads like a slap. A grid of people's forgotten mirrors, thrifted floor lamps, chipped end tables upcycled with spray paint, and wedged between 2 brass candlesticks, a photo of someone's grandmother in a gilt frame with the caption, "Estate Clear Out Score." Her bio is breezy, all lowercase. Quick resell. Porch pickups. DM for bundles. Quick resell. I taste metal behind my teeth. The canvases were not trash. They were attic air and linseed oil and my grandmother's laugh. They were initials pressed into stretcher bars, AL, like a whisper she wasn't ready to stop saying. Eric knew that, or he should have. He watched me dust each one. He watched me touch the brushstrokes the way you touch a face. Another ping from Mo. She posted 2 hours ago asking for more vintage art. Then, want me to message her? I type and erase and type again. The cursor blinks like a pulse. In the living room, the space above the couch is a clean rectangle of absence. 4 ghost squares where the sun once avoided the paint. The Venmo handle turns in my mind. A key I don't quite know how to use. A Jess finds. If she paid Eric, there's a record. If there's a record, there's proof that this wasn't a declutter. It was a sale. A choice made while I was counting change for tomatoes. I zoom in on the porch for more time. The bubble wrap is taped at the corners with blue painter's tape from the drawer I keep my framing tools in. The tape I use when I'm careful. A floorboard creaks in the hallway. Eric is home early, or the house is remembering him. I don't turn. I keep my eyes on the glow of my screen, on the evidence I can hold. The grid refreshes. New post, a sunlit tabletop. A caption. Picking up more art later. Stay tuned. My chest compresses. More means mine. Means the pieces he hasn't spotted yet. The ones I hid behind winter coats and inside a garment bag. The small ones with the smoky skies. My thumb hovers over the message button. My body feels split down the middle, half wanting to scream, half wanting to learn everything before I make a sound. Cilantro and bubble wrap, linseed and betrayal, the recipe of today. I save the images. I forwarded Mo the portal, the handle, and the bio. The word proof beats against my ribs. If Jess flips fast, I have to move faster. The bell over the door gave a cheerful little ding that didn't match the knot in my stomach. The corner gallery smelled like citrus cleaner and old varnish, a polite kind of nostalgia. He looked up from a wrapped parcel, squinted at the portfolio under my arm, then smiled like he'd been waiting for me anyway. "Where'd you get these frames?" My mouth went dry. "Family," I said, and slid out the first photo, the porch shot, the bubble wrap, the hands I wish I could forget. He didn't look at the people. He went straight for the edges, the corners, the places where wood fakes it least. He set the parcel aside and pulled a loop from his pocket. "May I?" I handed him the second photo, then the third. Close-ups I'd taken with trembling fingers, nail heads, stretcher bars, a sliver where the canvas had lifted at the back, exposing a layer the color of dried brick. He hummed, low and thoughtful. "Those tacks," he said, tapping the image. "Not modern, square cut, slightly burred. And the stretcher? No keyholes. Crude but right for the period." He leaned closer to the red peeking beneath the paint. "That ground. Peculiar tone. Not bright red, more. Venetian, iron-rich. You said you have a fifth?" "In my apartment." I unlocked my phone and scrolled to the one I hadn't let go. Not for sentimentality, for survival. The one I'd tucked behind my dresser like a heartbeat. I held out the screen, the thumbnail enlarging to the cracked varnish and whisper of that same red under the paint where the canvas was nicked. He took the phone like it was an instrument he knew how to play. The sound was a door opening. My pulse hit it like a sprint. He glanced up. "You didn't strip or clean these." "No, you didn't." "Repaint or, God forbid, reline." "No," I said sharper. The way he asked made me feel like I'd almost committed a crime I hadn't had time to consider. I was still counting the crimes already done to me. He smiled again, but differently this time, like the shape of something valuable had just risen from murky water. "Get an appraiser, today." The word "today" fell like a stamp on a passport. Suddenly the air had borders. I stared at him, at the tiny magnifier still threaded between his fingers, at the careful neutrality that people wear when money floats into a conversation. "Do you have someone?" I asked. "2 names, he said, and scribbled a pair of numbers on the back of a receipt. "Tell them I saw period-correct tax and a red ground I don't see every day. Tell them I'm not making promises." He handed me the paper, his thumb leaving a faint shine where my sweat had already dampened the corner. The bell dinged again as a couple wandered in, their voices blurring into the white walls and framed landscapes. For a second, I saw everything at once. The empty shelf where the canvases had sat in my home. The garage sale sign he'd waved like a verdict. The buyer's handle with the word "fines," as if that absolved her of theft in daylight. I slipped the receipt into my pocket and felt the weight shift. Approval used to be a currency I chased, thin and fragile as tissue. This was something else. Heavy, traceable, notarized by experts and numbers that couldn't be argued out of existence. Outside, the street was bright and ordinary, people carrying coffee cups and to-do lists. My phone buzzed. Mo again. I let it ring. The 5th canvas waited upstairs, quiet as a loaded question. I didn't need approval. I needed authentication. I opened my messages, hovered over the first appraiser's number, and pressed call. Somewhere between the first ring and the second, the future tipped. Avery lays the surviving painting flat and kills the lights. The room exhales into dark, just the hum of the air vent and the sweet old breath of oil and dust. He slips on cotton gloves, then angles a flashlight so low it skims the surface like moonlight across a lake. "Raking light," he says almost to himself. The canvas wakes up under the beam. Hairline cracks glitter into a map. Thin, silvered tributaries fanning out from the thick knots of pigment. The kind you only get when time keeps whispering the same winter into the same paint. He moves the light to the lower right and pauses. Beneath the tidy, almost modest signature, those initials I'd trained myself not to hope about, there's the faintest ghost of another letter tucked under the varnish, a tail of ink crossing where no line should be. "See that?" His voice is gentle, like we're watching a sleeping child. "Under signature. Or a correction. Could be nothing. Could be everything." My throat tightens. The other paintings are gone, bubble-wrapped on a stranger's porch and a time-stamped photo I can't stop opening. This one is the leftover, the stubborn survivor I couldn't let go. It looks smaller on his table, as if the value shrinks when you look at it too closely. He clicks the flashlight off and rolls a cart closer, lifting a bar like a magician revealing the second trick. UV, he says. The violet wash crawls over the canvas, and the surface blooms an otherworldly green, soft, even fluorescence. Not patchy, not hungry. Fluorescence is consistent with a natural resin varnish, he murmurs. Tomorrow, probably. That's a mid-century studio habit. 1950s. If there was later in-painting, it would go dull under this. But I'm not seeing islands of repair. His words ring like tiny bells. Mid-century. Studio habit. Consistent. Every syllable another thread tugged from the knot behind my ribs. What about those initials? I ask, and I hate how breathy I sound. She, my grandmother, etched AL into the stretcher bars. We found them when we were kids. She said a friend painted these. She never said who. Avery lifts his loupe and leans in, studying the paint ridge where the signature sits. The hand is assured, he says. Look at the drag in the L. Someone who knows the weight of a loaded brush. And the palette. The blue is biting, but the black isn't dead. That's bone black cut with something. Ivory, perhaps. It's not student work. Not student work knocks the air out of me. I picture Eric's grin in the porch photo. The frame balanced in Jess's arms. The caption she wrote on her profile, quick resell. My palms go damp inside my sleeves. Avery straightens, the UV glow casting his face in alien violets. If the set matches, he says carefully, this could be significant. The room goes very quiet. Even the vent seems to pause, listening for my answer, the way people listen when money enters a conversation. I swallow and pull the slip of paper from my bag. Grandma's recipe card with a date and a studio address I've read so many times that the ink has faded in the fold. He takes it with the same care he used on the painting. Provenance matters, he says. Old addresses matter. Neighbors, receipts, letters, and photographs of the others, front and back if you have them. I have a porch photo. I have a buyer's handle. I have a hole where the rest of my set should be. He turns the lights back on, and the painting slips into ordinary daylight, suddenly shy. His phone buzzes. He silences it. Mine buzzes too. A notification blooms across the screen. New listing from Jess Finds. Significant has a number. I wasn't ready for it. At auction, as a set, authenticated, you're looking at 1.4 to 1.7 million. My hands go cold. The room shifts a half inch, like the floor has remembered it's a boat. He's still peering through the loop. He turns the canvas toward the light, the way a doctor lifts a face to check for bruises. Caveats, he says, like he's offering me water I won't be able to keep down. Provenance, condition, and the full set must be reunited. His gloved fingertip hovers over the edge. See there? The tax period correct. And this. He tilts, catching a vein of brick-colored halo beneath a brushstroke. Red ground underlayer. The trademark in this school? I taste metal. What school? Isla Lenskaya, he says, almost reverent, then softens it. Possibly. More likely the Lenskaya Circle. A student or studio hand. She trained a stable of protégé. The red ground is their tell. He looks at me without putting the painting down. Do you have the others? Some. I think of the porch photo, Eric's outline, the bubble wrap, the stranger's hand taking what was not his. I think of Grandma's attic, that cedar smell, her sideways smile when she said, "A friend painted these," like the truth was a secret we'd earned. Some, he repeats. The word hangs, a cracked bell. To reach this figure, they must be together. The sequence is compositional. See how the horizon line continues, left to right, like a seam. He gestures to the canvas I brought and the phone photos of the ones already gone. Separated, they're diminished. Reunited, they're a map. A map. My stomach tightens. I imagine Jess Finds' profile, the little brag in her bio. Quick resell. I imagine the pieces scattered across town like dropped breadcrumbs, and me on my knees in the dirt. He eases the painting back into its cradle. His voice lowers, managerial now, all liability and weather forecasts. Don't post these. Don't contact the press. I'm serious. He slides me a card. Get counsel. A good art attorney. If these are what I think they are, the money will make people stupid. You need to be boring. He says the last word like a bomb. But my grandmother. Boring is how you protect your grandmother, he says. Provenance is a story, legally told. You'll need affidavits, any letters, photographs, receipts, shipping crates, and signatures. Who held them? When? A chain of title cannot have gaps. He taps the card again. Counsel will tell you what to say, and what not to. My throat burns. What about the condition? He smiles with half his mouth. Lovely, honest age, crack-a-lure that sings instead of screams. Whoever had them didn't let them rot. He pauses. Who had them? My family. The word is heavier than a safe. My ex had opinions about clutter. He waits, professional patience blooming between us. I fill it with air I can't use. He knows there's a story. He also knows stories leak value if told to the wrong ears. On the street, the air is too bright. The city feels newly predatory. Pawn signs winking, glass reflecting knives of sunlight, every window a possible eye. I hover on the curb with the crate hugged to my ribs and watch a bus groan past, its ad screaming about fast cash in 24 hours. I think about Mo's text, the timestamp, Eric's grin, the porch steps with their chipped blue paint, the exact blue Grandma loved. If I'd come home 10 minutes earlier, would any of this be different? My phone buzzes. A new message. Are you still selling the other frames? I press the phone face down against the crate until the vibration stops. The appraiser's card is warm in my palm. A small, hard promise. I tuck it into my wallet, next to Grandma's grocery list with linseed misspelled and circled 3 times. I want to run to Jess's door. I want to bulldoze Eric with truth and law and shame. I want to scatter their names like nails. Instead, I breathe, count to 8, and look both ways like a child learning to cross. Counsel first, confrontation later. Attorney Lane slides a legal pad over. Who owns them? You or we? Me, I say, surprising myself with how steady it sounds. They're mine. He taps his pen once, eyes on my face, not the paper. Good. Then let's make that real on paper. The office smells like old books and lemon cleaner. A clock ticks too loudly above a certificate in a gold frame. I pull the folder from my bag, Grandma's will, clipped and crisp. My inventory photos with the dates baked into the corners. A spreadsheet I made at 2 a.m. Hands shaking, listing titles like they were names of pets gone missing. Lane leafs through it all with a kind of soft efficiency, nodding to himself. Okay, he says. Plain English. Unauthorized sale is called conversion. Someone takes your property and sells it? That's a civil wrong. And a thief can't pass a good title. Ever. If I steal your bike and sell it to a nice neighbor, the neighbor may be nice, but they don't own the bike. You do. So even if she didn't know, I ask, even if he said it was his to sell? Still yours. He draws a box on the yellow pad and writes property in block letters. The law cares about ownership, not bravado. The word bravado lands like a thumbnail pressed into my skin. I think of his smirk. The way he'd say we, our storage, our space, our decisions, and then put his hand over my boxes like a lid. We, meaning me quiet and him in charge? Lane keeps going. We need 3 immediate steps. First, demand letters. To anyone who handled the pieces. Your ex, any gallery, any reseller. They'll say we had no idea, and that's fine. The letter preserves your claim and tells them to stop moving the work. Second, a police report. You'll get an incident number. It's not the whole battle, but it records the timeline. Third, we ask for a hold on consignment. If any of these landed at a shop, we make sure they don't get sold while we sort this out. I nod, and he watches me, like he's measuring whether I'm going to crumble or catch fire. This is going to feel slow, he warns. Letters, calls, waiting. You'll want to kick doors. Instead, we build a file. Judges like files. I slide Grandma's will toward him again. She wrote my name twice, I say. Once in the will and once on the stretcher bars. Her initials, A.L. That's excellent. He takes a photo of the initials, then of the will. Chain of custody matters. Your inventory photos, did you take them before the sale? Yes. I don't say. I took them because he called them clutter one too many times, and my grandmother's voice started to feel like it was fading. I don't say. I thought I was being sentimental. Instead, I was building proof. Then you're already ahead. He flips the pad and drafts the first letter. It's not dramatic. It's not cinematic. It's a paragraph that says the pieces belong to me, that they were sold without authorization, and that all transfers must stop. He reads it out loud once, each word like a step laid onto an icy sidewalk. Can we get them back? I ask. Yes, he says. Maybe not all at once. But the law's on your side. People bluff with volume. We answer with paper. I sign the engagement letter. My hand doesn't shake this time. Lane gives me a copy of the demand letter and an empty manila folder. Start keeping everything, he says. Screenshots, receipts, voicemail transcriptions. If someone postures don't match it, send it to me. Outside, the air is colder than I expected. I tuck the folder under my arm like a shield. I used to think justice sounded like shouting. Today, it sounded like a pen scratching across yellow paper. Paper beats posture. Jess lists 2 canvases with fresh glam shots. They glow on my screen like they've been baptized. Pro lighting, white walls, a vase of tulips for scale. The frames I wrapped in brown paper and painter's tape now lean on her marble counter, liberated, gleaming. Titles in neat caps. Untitled, pair, mid-century school, oil on canvas. She's written a little romance in the description, sophisticated red ground, confident brushwork, estate find, and added a starting bid that could pay my rent for 6 months. I zoom in until the pixels break. There it is, the red underlayer breathing through the pale strokes like a hush she can't quite smother. My stomach drops through the kitchen tile. I recognize the tiny nick on the lower stretcher. The way the linen lifts a hair's breadth in the corner where Grandma had pressed the tack at an angle. Not cousins, not lookalikes, mine. I click her profile. Jess finds, quick resell, fast ship, 5-star repeat seller. A carousel of before and after flips, lamp, rug, portrait with a crackle varnish treated like a rescue dog. 2 hours ago she posted the first canvas, 30 minutes later the second. Her captions echo something I've seen before, that same careful hedge. Attributed to mid-century school. The words are a smudge of maybe. They're also a shield. I breathe, count 4, hold, count 4. Lane's voice from yesterday is still in my ear. Counsel first, confrontation later. But the screen is a dream, and I am human. I tap message. Hi Jess, hope you're well. I believe those 2 canvases were taken from my home without consent this morning. Could we talk? I have documentation. Typing dots. Then the reply arrives like a stamp on my forehead. I bought in good faith. I stare at the phrase. It has a courtroom shine to it, like a charm bracelet of words you're told to keep on hand. I try again. I understand. The seller, Eric, is not the owner. I have photos, a provenance trail, and a police report filed. I'm asking politely first. She sends a heart to polite, then another message. I'm sorry for your situation, but I have costs. If you want them back, you can bid. Bid. On the painting, my grandmother kept a breathing distance from the radiator each winter so the canvases wouldn't warp. On the brushwork, she called it prayer because you don't rush it, you return to it. Bid, like I'm a stranger to my blood. I swallow the heat rising into my ears and forward the listing links to Lane. He responds in under a minute. The text so calm it feels refrigerated. On it. Then another chime, an email CC'd to me. Formal demand addressed to a Jess finds, subject line crisp as an envelope crease. He cites the theft report number, the title to stolen property, the duty to preserve and return RN, and the notice that continuing the sale could constitute conversion. He attaches screenshots. My photos of the 5th canvas, Grandma's initials burned into a stretcher bar, Eric's porch at 11:17 a.m. with the bubble-wrapped frames mid-pass. The words are clean and unspectacular. No adjectives, just teeth. Jess's scene mark appears beneath my last message and goes still. I refresh her page. The bids tick upward anyway, little blue numbers marching like ants. Lane calls. We'll get a temporary hold from the platform, he says. Don't engage further. His voice is a metronome. We let the paper do the talking. I sit at the table, palms flat, heart sinking to the slow pulse of the router light. In the photos, the tulips lean toward the canvases like they know where the sun is. I know where the proof is. Good faith ends where receipts begin. You should thank me, he says, arms folded. The kitchen still smells like the lemon cleaner he sloshed onto the counters this morning, aggressive like a cover-up. The walls look bare. My grandmother's frame's replaced by a rectangle of paler paint, in the shape of what used to matter. Eric leans against the island like a cop in a procedural, casual, convinced. For what? I ask. I don't trust my voice not to break, so I make it flat, like a piece of paper laid on the surface of water. For decluttering your life, he says, with that soft laugh that always sounds like it's about to bite. You never cared. They're ugly. We needed space. My mouth tastes like tin. I cared, I say, and I can hear how small I sound, like I'm 16 again, arguing about a curfew I didn't deserve. They were my grandmother's. He widens his eyes, contrition on his face like cheap cologne. Babe, come on. You never even dusted them. They made the room feel old. You said you wanted a reset. I wanted us to stop hurting each other, I say. That's not the same thing. He pushes off the island, palms up. You're being dramatic. It's just junk. We can get you something real, something that fits. The words clang around the kitchen like dropped spoons. Just junk, something real. I pull my phone from my pocket, my hands steadier than they should be. I sent pictures to an appraiser yesterday, just to see, because you kept calling them nothing. I tap the screen, open the email. The subject line glows in a clean, polite font. Preliminary valuation. He's still talking. You're making this into a thing. I hold the phone up. His reflection stutters in the glass. Read it. Silence falls like a sheet. He blinks. His mouth stays open a second too long, then shuts. He reads once, twice. The pulse in his jaw kicks. He starts. It says authenticated set, potentially significant, I say, and my voice surprises me. It's calm. It's the voice you use when explaining instructions to a stranger. It says, do not sell, do not move, get counsel. His tongue moves behind his teeth, pushing at a lie that won't fit. Who even is this person? Anyone can make a fancy letterhead. It's not a letterhead, I say. It's credentials. He laughs again, brittle. You're overreacting. You never cared about those. You care about attention. Is that what this is? You want drama? You're addicted to it. You never notice things until I do something about them. I notice everything, I say. His phone lights up on the counter with a small insect buzz. A preview unfurls on the lock screen before he can grab it. We good for drop cash tonight? Time rearranges, the room tilting a degree toward truth. He palms the phone and flips it face down too late. Work, he says fast. It's nothing. What kind of work pays in cash? I ask. My voice is still soft. Mine, but not the version he's spent months sanding down. He shrugs without answering, eyes sliding away. My thumb prints the appraisal email again, and I forward it to myself, to 2 places he doesn't know. A tiny act, a single stitch pulled tight. He steps closer, trying on a smile. Babe, let not know. Where are they, Eric? Gone, he says, and the word lands hard between us, a dropped stone in a shallow bowl. I told you, I took care of it. He wants me to argue in circles until I'm dizzy, to cry so he can sigh and hold me and tell me I'm too sensitive. I look at the pale squares on the wall where the frames used to hang and see empty picture hooks like punctuation marks, like colons. More to come. The message preview floats in my head, a name with only an initial, a plan scheduled like a weather report. Cash leaves footprints. I pick up my keys. Then I'll find where they went. The frames talk if you listen. So do emails. I lay the remaining canvas on the dining table and turn the lamp into a small sun. The linen threads bloom under the heat. Tiny ridges, tiny valleys. At the edges, the crust of old varnish is amber and stubborn. I slip a palette knife under the brown paper backing and feel the brittle give, a quiet exhale like a secret relieved to be told. Inside, a scuffed masonite board, graphite scrawl in the lower right corner, a looped A, a slashed L, and beneath it a shorthand note. Number 2, anemones. I don't breathe. I've traced those letters in my mind since I was a kid, pressing my fingertip over ALEs carved into Grandma's studio stool. Same pressure, same impatience in the line, same hand. I photograph the pencil marks, one with scale, a coin next to the initials. Then I pull out the shoebox from the hall closet, the one with her recipe cards and the cracked rubber band. Photos lie like dried leaves. There she is, Grandma, younger than I've ever seen her, leaning into a woman with a paintbrush poised in midair. The woman's elbow is raised, wrist cocked, the stroke just beginning to arc. I know that curve. It's the comma the petals make on the canvases, the tilt that turns bloom into breath. They're standing in front of a red-primed ground, the same red the gallery owner saw when he peered past the paint. On the back of the photo, a penciled line, faded and certain. Ayla, summer 1964. No last name. Just a first, as if the world should already know. The printer hums alive. I copied the photo. I copied the board. I copied the back of the photo. Every freckle of paper sickness. Paper doesn't weigh much until it's asked to carry proof. Then it drags on the air. My phone vibrates on the wood and scoots an inch. A message from Mo. Check your email. I open my laptop. The clock in the corner blinks 11:42 p.m. like an accusation. Inbox. A forward chain from Mo's number. Subject line. You need to see this. Screenshots bloom. First, Jess's marketplace listing with my frames posed in soft morning light, captioned mid-century school. Then her DM, casual and quick. And then the one that seals the feeling that every surface in this house is tilting. Eric to Jess, 10:39 a.m. Take all 4. 200 before she gets home. The cursor burns beside the period. The words lean on each other like a dare. My scalp prickles. Before she gets home. He meant the hour on the porch. The bubble wrap. The sound that wasn't thunder but a hatch slamming on the past. He arranged it like duct-taped luggage wheeled down the driveway. I scroll, hands cold. There's his earlier email to her, subject frames, no greeting, just an address and a time. The line beneath it is Jess's reply, that quick reseller bravado. Done. I print the thread, staple it to the photo, staple the photo to the copy of the board marks, as if I'm sewing a mouth shut so it can't change its story overnight. I press the staples flat with my thumb until a ridge of pain rises and steadies me. The house creaks. Somewhere on the counter, his coffee mug is still wearing his mouth. I can taste metal on my tongue. I hold the stack to my chest and listen to the heavy quiet. The frames told me. The paper confirms it. The proof sits warm from the printer, a small furnace in my arms. Before I get home, or before I find out. I watch the screen bloom from gray to bone white as Avery slides the painting under the X-ray head. Static whispers. For a breath, the landscape, those obedient pines and lake water, holds. Then the trees thin like hair in rye, and a face begins to lift through them, pale as a moon. A woman. A portrait sleeping beneath the lake. Avery leans closer, glasses nudging the bridge of their nose. There you are, they murmur, a little reverent. This is why artists make us earn our keep. My palms go damp on the edge of the table. So it's not just random. No, this is deliberate. They tap the monitor with a gloved finger, tracing the ghosted lines. See the hatchwork around the eyes? The triple cross at the temple? Lenskaya does this when she paints over a study. There are notes about it in the 1998 and 2004 catalogs. They shoot me a glance. People rarely look. They just sell. The word hits me like a stone. Sell. A Venmo ping. $200, art. Avery calls up a catalog page on their laptop. A different canvas, a different face, but the same secrecy, the same geometry under the surface, a habit of hiding. They put the images side by side, X-ray to X-ray. The underdrawing aligns like a fingerprint. Underpainting matches Lenskaya's known hidden studies, Avery says, voice going formal, almost courtroom ready. This isn't wishful thinking. They wheel the lamp closer and take a scalpel to the painting's edge, a precise breath-sized scrape from the margin where the frame once bit. The fleck is nothing, dust to my eyes, but Avery's grin returns as the spectrometer hums. Pigment sample, they narrate for my sake, shows lead white and vermilion. Mercury sulfide all day. The binders oxidized the way I'd expect for her pre-war period. They chuckle. Science is a terrible flirt. It doesn't lie to spare feelings. I think of him saying, ugly paintings, decluttering. I had swallowed back my answer because rage makes you hoarse. Right now, my voice feels clean. So it's real. It's Lenskaya, Avery says simply. Maybe not cataloged yet. But this, they gesture to the glowing face under the lake, is her handwriting. They move through steps I can't pretend to understand. More images, a UV pass, notes in a calm, precise hand. On the desk, the conservator's letterhead waits. Avery writes while I pace the little studio, reading phrases I've only seen in articles. In my professional opinion, consistent with materials and methods, recommended handling, estimated replacement value to be determined by a qualified appraiser. They add stills of the X-ray and a neat paragraph outlining the chain of custody that makes my throat tighten. Grandma's house, the shelf, the sudden blank space, the humiliating receipt in my phone. Avery prints, signs, and scans. I'll send copies to your insurer and your attorney. You'll need both. Google Drive link is in your email. They hesitate, gentling their tone. This won't make him kinder, but it will make you louder. I press my fingertips to the glass over the sleeping portrait, not touching, just close enough to feel the cool rise. She was here all along, I whisper to the woman under the lake. He just didn't bother to look. Outside, afternoon traffic threads by, ordinary and unbothered. My phone vibrates, 3 messages in a row, his name blooming like a rash across the screen. I slide the report into my bag. Science is louder than sarcasm. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, then answer. Lane circles 2 words on the yellow pad so hard the ink feathers. Void title. The only thing he sold, she says, tapping the circle, was a problem. I sit forward, palms flat on the oak. But Jess paid him. She paid for nothing you can legally own. Lane's voice is calm, clinical, the kind they use before the needle goes in. If he wasn't the owner, Jess couldn't get a valid title. Nemo dat. No one can give what they don't have. She draws an arrow from void title to Jess, and then slashes a neat line through it. And that means the clock starts for us. She pulls a template onto her screen. Demand letter. I can. See my name in the header. The paintings listed like children on a roll call. 4 canvases, oil on board, period frames, initialed A, L. I read each line like a prayer I'm afraid to mispronounce. Return in original condition, Lane dictates. Within 72 hours. Delivery at our office or police precinct of our choosing. Her cursor blinks at the end of the sentence, a metronome for my pulse. Costs of transport, conservation inspection, and legal fees borne by the possessor. Possessor, meaning Jess, I say. Meaning anyone currently holding, reselling, or offering them, Lane replies. We'll send it to Jess and copy the consignment platforms. No resale, no transfer, no funny business. On her desk, the stapler glints like a small weapon. I remember Eric's hands around the frames, the bubble wrap noise like soda fizz, so cheerful, so ordinary. My throat tightens. Lane glances at me. You okay? I'm fine, I lie, because grief and fury have agreed to share a body, and it's crowded. She keeps moving. We'll also file an injunction notice to the platform and any auction house we can find in her sales history. And click, click. TRO draft, temporary restraining order. She looks at me over the rim of her glasses. Courts-like clarity. We have the will, your inventory photos, the appraiser's intake, the police report. This is a conversion case with a bow on it. Jess says she bought in good faith. Good faith ends where receipts begin, Lane says, almost smiling, and where void title begins. I breathe in the office smell, toner, lemon cleaner, and someone's coffee gone cold. The screen light flickers across her legal pad as she edits. A line appears. Any further display or offer for sale will constitute willful infringement and expose you to punitive damages. It's not poetry, but it feels like music. Sign the affidavit, Lane says, sliding a stack toward me. Attest to possession before the sale. Dates, photos, your grandmother's will. We're building a bridge the judge can walk across without wetting her shoes. My pen shakes. I sign anyway. The J in my name looks like a hook catching on something inside me. Last piece, Lane says. We need to show Eric knew, or should have known, he had no right to sell. It doesn't change the void title, but it tightens the screws. How? Texts, emails, any message where you told him those paintings were yours. Anything where he admits moving them, pricing them, and handing them off. If he had noticed, his oops becomes intent. I think of his declutter smile, the way he held the garage sale sign like a bouquet. My phone is a hot coin in my pocket. Somewhere in there is the version of him that gets sloppy with truth. Lane prints, collates, staples. The letters stack like loaded dice. We'll courier these now, and we'll notify the platform by email and portal. Once they see injunction, they freeze. Outside her window, traffic crawls. I picture the paintings traveling in the opposite direction, back toward me, through the slow arteries of the city. Almost home. Now I needed proof Eric knew exactly what he'd done. Mo props his elbows on my kitchen table like he's prepping for surgery. My phone sits between us, screen bright, a small square of the life I thought I understood. He's already spun up 2 tabs on his laptop, one for my carrier portal, one for a shady little tool that scrapes iCloud logs if you know what you're doing. He does. Mo knows how to unspool a knot without breaking the thread. Okay, he says, eyes flicking. You said you saw M on Eric's lock screen last night? A text. Drop cash tonight. My throat tastes like pennies. He turned the phone over when he caught me staring. Mo nods, typing. Let's see who M likes to be when he thinks no one's watching. The contacts dump resolves into a grid. Names, numbers, fragments. Eric has 3M. Maria. From the gym, Mason from fantasy football, and then a 4th entry that isn't quite a name at all. Just M, with the little M dash like a shrug. No photo, no email. The number is saved twice, once here, and once in a note. M, broker. My heart does a slow, ugly turn. Got a message cache, Mo says. He didn't wipe the laptop. A gray panel blooms open. The thread with M is pinched and clipped. Gaps where Eric must have deleted, but the gaps still leave fingerprints. Timestamps. Attachments. 3 weeks ago, the first photo, my grandmother's canvases lined across our couch, their faces turned toward the light like a choir. The cushions I vacuumed last Sunday. The throw I bought on sale. Eric's caption rides under it. Old lady art. Any use? My breath hooks. Old lady art. As if a life could be flattened into a junk category. M's reply lands a minute later. Move them cheap. I'll handle the rest. Mo whistles, soft and mean. Broker speak. He fences or he knows who does. Scroll. More. Eric again. Need to clear a personal debt fast. Friday latest. A follow-up. A screenshot of his bank app hovering just above 0. A red banner about an overdraft. My name doesn't appear, but the math does. The Venmo he took from Jess. The way the porch photo aligned with the pickup time while I was out. There's another image, too. Close-ups of the signatures on the stretcher bars. The red underpaint glowing like a wound in bad lighting. This is before he decluttered, I say. He sent pics before he sold them. Mo taps a date, 2 days before Jess shows up. He shopped them first. My pulse is a drumbeat behind my eyes. The word that keeps flashing is planned. Not a mistake, not a misunderstanding. He scouted a fence. He tested a flip, and he used the person who loved him like an ATM with a smile. I can hear his voice, the casual sarcasm, the breezy cruelty. You never cared. They're ugly. We needed space. He was rehearsing a defense while composing inventory photos. Mo drags the attachments into a folder he's named Evidence. Plain, capital letters. No oxygen for doubt. We'll export the thread. Keep metadata intact. Timestamps, hashes, the whole grid. Lane's going to love this. Lane needs this, I correct. But the steel in my voice surprises me. The gallery guy said underlayers like this matter. The appraiser said the set matters. The law says title matters. I might be shaking. I might also be done shaking. Another bubble from M flashes at the bottom of the thread, dated the morning of the sale. Cash buyer on standby. Don't get sentimental. Don't get sentimental. Mo glances up. You okay? No. I swallow hard. But I'm not sentimental. I airdrop the folder to my laptop, then attach it to an email to Lane with a subject line that feels like waking up. Thread, M, plus, pre-sale photos, plus, debt motive. I added 3 sentences, factual, no adornment. Mo clicks his tongue in approval. Outside, a siren peals down the avenue. In the reflection on my blacked-out phone, I look like someone I recognize again. Handle the rest? Not if the court handles it first. It's just stuff, dear. Mara says it with a soft smile and a pat to the air. Like she can tidy the mess with manners. The living room smells like lemon polish and oversteeped tea. The family photos along the mantel watch like a jury in gilt frames. Eric sits forward on the edge of the sofa, elbows on knees, jaw working. His sister has already folded her arms. An uncle I barely know pretends to check his phone. The choir's assembled and they're ready to sing the same hymn. Mistakes happen, boys will be boys, forgiveness is mature. He meant well, Mara adds, eyes skittering off mine. He was trying to help you. Clear some space. You know how sentimental you get. I let the sentence drift and die. I keep my hand on the manila folder in my lap. The paper is warm from my leg. I've been holding it long enough to memorize the curve of the clip. Lane told me to stick to facts, not feelings. Let them fill the silences with their noise. So I do. I brought something, I say. Mara's smile flickers. Eric exhales through his nose. I open the folder and slide out the appraisal, the thick cream paper with Avery's letterhead, and the photo of the surviving canvas in the corner. It looks like nothing, just a piece of paper, until I start to read. At auction, as a set, authenticated, I say, my voice steady. We're looking at 1.4 to 1.7 million. The kettle clicks in the kitchen, done and ignored. Someone's bracelet clinks against a mug. Eric's sister blinks twice, fast, like a cartoon. The room pulls tight around the edges, sound vacuumed out. Even the air seems to step back from me. Dem, the uncle says, almost reverent like he's in church. It lands heavy and honest in the quiet. Mara's lips part. She presses her fingertips together and lowers her eyes, as if the paper itself is rude. He didn't know, she recovers, reaching for a coaster she doesn't need. He couldn't have known. It was an accident, and Eric took all 4, I say. Not loud, not cruel, before I got home. He sold them for $200. He signed his name on the pickup note. The buyer's listing went up the same day. I tapped the second page, screenshots, timestamps, and a porch photo Lane pulled from the chat log. Good intentions don't fill out Venmo. Eric finally looks at me, and I can't tell if it's anger or fear that has his eyes bright. Jenna, I'm not here to fight, I say, and I mean it. I'm here to place facts on the table like cutlery. I'm here to let their own words be the blade. I filed the police report. The demand letters went out. The auction house has been notified. Title is void. I let that word ring. The one Lane circled. The one that doesn't care about family or lemon polish. A thief can't pass a good title. Mara swallows. This is family. We can work it out among ourselves. We are, I say. Right now with everyone present. I fold the appraisal back, slow and neat because control is its kind of volume. You called it stuff. He called it clutter. But they were mine. My grandmother's work. My evidence. My decision. The chorus has nothing to sing to that. They look everywhere but at me. Eric's jaw ticks. Somewhere, a clock I hadn't noticed starts to be unbearably loud. I stand, the folder under my arm, and I offer them the only mercy I can afford. Value doesn't make me right, ownership does. Jess caves after the injunction notice. Lane's email hit at 9:07 a.m. Formal letterhead, docket numbers, and one line that did the heavy lifting. Preliminary injunction pending, cease transfer. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a DM from Jess Fines. Can we resolve this without lawyers? The tone had shifted from breezy flipspeak to careful. I took a breath and let Lane steer. He drafted a short bridge, returned the 2 canvases in Jess's possession. I'll reimburse purchase price and reasonable costs, gas, packing materials, plus a small courtesy fee. Jess makes no admission of fault. We make no public statements. Both parties acknowledge the title issue is between me and the person who sold without authority. Clean. Clinical. No gloating. Jess agreed within the hour. I felt my shoulders drop for the first time in days. We arranged a neutral handoff at a shipping counter with cameras and a notary in the back office. Lane insisted on the paper trail. I insisted on seeing the corners of the frames before anyone signed. When the clerk set the box on the scale and cut the tape, the smell hit me first. Old cedar and the faintest whiff of linseed. The soft bevel my grandmother sanded was there, like a thumbprint. "Hi," I whispered, ridiculous and honest. Jess stood a foot back, hands in jacket pockets. "I didn't know," she said, eyes on the counter. "I buy and sell. That's it. Your guy said they were his." "Not my guy," I said. "But I know what you mean." She nodded. "Your lawyer's letter mentioned void title." I Googled. Yikes. "Yeah," I said. Yikes. We signed the receipt, reimbursement, costs, and a modest fee for her trouble. No admission, no flames, just the business of making a wrong a little less wrong. As the clerk retaped the box, Jess exhaled and slid a folded printout across the counter. "This is my chat with a collector in Peoria," she said. I passed one canvas to her the day after pickup. The fourth I never held. Your seller messaged me that he had another buyer who'd move faster. He sent me this tracking number when he bragged about out-hustling me. 2 leads, 2 lines on a map I could follow. Back in Lane's office, we spread everything out. DM screenshots, the shipping label Jess printed, and contact info for the collector. Lane fired off a second notice, a demand to return to the Peoria buyer, citing conversion, plus a hold request to a regional auction house whose logo sat on the second tracking label. The number pinged to a warehouse just outside the city. Lot intake, North Dock. My stomach flipped. Auction houses move quickly. Once a lot gets cataloged, it's like a fast river. You either get a hand in, or you watch it float away. Avery, the appraiser, joined our quick call and suggested we attach the conservator's X-ray image and the will excerpt to both notices. "Give them confidence they're not stepping into drama," he said. "Give them facts." Lane nodded. "Facts with teeth." I texted Mo a single line, "To her home," and she replied with 3 spark emojis and a "told you receipts matter." Tiny need. In my living room, the returned canvases leaned against the sofa like old friends catching a breath. I didn't unwrap them fully yet. Superstition, maybe, or respect. Instead, I took photos for the insurance file, condition notes, tape measurements, and the signature pencil marks on the stretcher. I sent copies to cloud folders labeled with dates and initials, the way my grandmother taught me to label the world so it wouldn't slip. At 4:12 p.m., Lane's inbox chimed, an auto reply from the auction house. Claim received. Consignment under review. Please provide the police report number. We had it ready. 10 minutes later, a human followed up. We've placed an internal hold on the work pending ownership verification. I exhaled, shaky and loud. A pause wasn't a victory, but it was air in the room. Jess texted one last time. "No hard feelings?" I typed and deleted 3 versions of the truth before settling on the kind we could both carry. "Thanks for doing the right thing once you knew." She sent back a tiny thumbs up. The chat went quiet. I sat on the floor, back against the couch, and let the house be still. 2 canvases upright, 2 in transit. My grandmother's initials, half faded, half stubborn, felt less lonely. 2 homes, 2 to go. Auction hold Lane's email hits my inbox like a gavel. Subject, consignment claim receive, lot 386 under review. He CC'd me and Mo, and the consignment director's signature block sits there like a brass plaque. Elise Wren, Director of Paintings, North Shore Auction. Clean, certain, official. Elise's reply is clipped and careful. Under our policy, we have moved lot 386 to under review. Cataloging and photography are paused pending verification of ownership. Please transmit any supporting documentation. I already have the folder open, the one I've been feeding for days. Lane calls it a provenance packet. I call it a map back to the person who painted my childhood into canvas. I drag the files in one by one. 1. Police theft report. The PDF is pale and bureaucratic. The words residential theft look almost embarrassed in the font. There's a number stamped in the corner like a small bruise. I remember the officer's pen clicking as I said Eric's name out loud. 2. Chain of custody notes. Grandma's ledger scanned. Her steady cursive marking each canvas with the month, the weather, the person she was thinking of when she mixed the colors. A photo of me at 7, front teeth missing, holding a brush I thought was magic. The back of another photo, 1999, in blue ink. Alma's landscape, given to Jenna for her room. A neighbor's notarized statement. I saw the paintings in that house for 20 years. 3. Conservator's report. Dr. Kamal's letterhead is ivory and stern. I attach the X-ray first. Spectral rivers of lead white, underdrawing like a ghost grid. A repair at the lower left, where Grandma once dropped a mug and laughed about bad luck making better art. Zoomed-in plates show cracklier that matches the old Polaroids, pattern for pattern. In the margins of the report, her initials appear like a found heartbeat, AL, pressed into the stretcher bar, the exact scar of wood grain we photographed last winter. 4. Photo of Grandma. She's in profile at the easel, hair pinned, paint under her nails, the canvas in question behind her like a sunrise that chose to stay. A wall calendar in the shot nails the date, May 2001. She's looking at something off-frame with the kind of love that makes your throat hurt. I hover over send and feel the room hold its breath. Then I click. The uploaded files whistle into the ether. My screen redraws. I can almost hear Elise's heels along a corridor, her voice threading through glass-walled offices. Hold that lot. No plate shots. No condition text. Somewhere, a junior cataloger hovers over a keyboard and freezes, the little circle next to in progress shifting to paused. Lane calls. We're good, he says, lawyer calm. Her policy is conservative. If she has a shadow of doubt, she stops the train. You just gave her the shade in the tree. Will it hold? I ask the window, not him. Out on the street, a delivery truck exhales and crawls on. It should. We gave them provenance that can stand up if anyone breathes on it. And the X-ray? That's gold. He pauses. Jenna, this is the part where you don't blink. I don't. I watch my sent mail like it's a door. Minutes later, Elise replies. Received. We will not proceed to photography or public preview until this matter is resolved. Our security team has flagged the lot in storage. 2 words glow like a lighthouse. Not proceed. I stand, slower than I mean to, and the space above the couch looks less like a wound and more like an outline. The absence is waiting to be filled. Not today, but waiting. My phone buzzes again. Another email. New subject line. New ice. Subject. Counter statement, or Lot 386. From Eric Caldwell, CC, Elise Wren. Legal onshore auction. Come the preview text is enough to tilt the floor. As co-owner, I rescind my wife's claim and assert full right to sell. See attached bill of sale and affidavit. Lane's name flashes on my screen again, but I'm already opening Eric's attachments. The last page is still loading when the doorbell rings. Twice. The second time longer, as if someone is leaning on it. Eric makes one last play. He starts with a grin that doesn't touch his eyes. So, Eric says, planting his palms on my kitchen island like he owns the quartz. Now that they're valuable, I think it's fair I get half. Half. The word lands with the soft thunk of a dull knife. I slide the folder toward Lane. He opens it like a magician doing a slow reveal. Porch photo, timestamp at 11:17 a.m. Bubble wrap catching sunlight. Eric's hand extended. Jess's painted nails closing around the frames. Documentation breathes better in daylight. Lane doesn't bother with small talk. You sold them for $200, he says, voice sanded smooth. Without authority. Eric laughs too loudly. Authority? Come on. We were married. Community property. Which is why we're here. Lane cuts in, pleasant as a paper cut. He lays out the next sheet. A single page, clean font. Offer. You sign full restitution for the appraised value, less the $200 you already took, and a waiver of any marital claim to the paintings, proceeds, or derivative rights. In exchange, we don't file the civil suit we drafted, and we do not pursue the criminal referrals we're prepared to make. Eric's face brightens with false bravado. Referrals to whom? Police, district attorney, and insurance fraud division, Lane says. Since you represented yourself as an owner to the buyer. Since you coordinated a sale of stolen goods. They weren't stolen. They were junk. He pivots, fishing for my eyes. You said yourself your grandma got them from a friend. We both know that means... Stop, I say, and my voice surprises me with how calm it is. I take out my phone and set it on the island, screen facing up. The subject line glows. Re-pickup. I press play. The The email reads itself in a tinny monotone, machine-voiced and merciless. Hey Jess, pick up at 11:17 a.m. Bubble wrap ready. Don't forget Venmo Jess finds the 200 right away. Keep this quiet till I can move the rest. Lane doesn't blink. He lets the words hang, the way a fisherman lets the line go slack right before the pull. Eric shifts, then scoffs. That could be anyone. It's from your Gmail, I say. Sent from your phone. Your location was on. The photo metadata says my porch. The island clock ticks. Outside, a bus hisses to a stop and moves on. Eric's mouth opens, then closes, then opens again around a theory that dies before it's born. Bluster, like cheap perfume, fades under oxygen. Lane taps the signature line on the document with a capped pen. The appraisals conservatively put the set in the high six figures, pending authentication, which we're fast-tracking. Restitution now saves you from punitive damages later. The waiver saves you the embarrassment of pretending you ever valued them as anything other than quick cash. Eric leans back, tips his chin. Or I lawyer up and drag this out. Press tells both sides. Maybe I'll say you're flipping a family inheritance. Maybe I say, I hit play again. Louder this time, skipping to the part where he wrote, keep this quiet till I can move the rest. The words are ugly in the clean kitchen air. He flinches like sound can bruise. You sold my grandmother's work for $200, I say. You didn't ask. You didn't tell me. You didn't even bother to look at the backs. He glances at the folder, at the red ground bleeding through hairline cracks, at the tax Lane photographed like a crime scene. His eyes flicker, the microsecond where his brain calculates the failing math of denial. Lane sets the pen beside the waiver. This is the part where you sign. Eric's jaw works. Pride wars with fear. Both lose to proof. I don't fill the silence. I let it spool out, taut and decisive. Silence is a kind of signature, too. Avery pauses with the tiny brass screws, then slips the last one free. The backing boards sigh away from the frame like an old door, and something the color of tea leaves peeks out from the seam. He stills. With the same gentleness he used on the canvas, he eases a brittle envelope from the channel where the wood meets the stretcher. Thin, foxed at the edges, the flap sealed with a darkened crescent of glue. He looks up at me once, as if to ask permission that he doesn't need, and I nod because my voice is somewhere under the floor. He slides a palette knife under the flap, breath held, and lifts. The smell hits first. Old paper, cedar, a faint bite of resin that makes me think of my grandmother's winter closets. Inside is a single folded sheet and a small, glossy square tucked like a secret under the fold. Avery coaxes the letter open with gloved fingers, laying it flat beside the painting as if both are patients on the same table. The handwriting is immediately hers, my grandmother's unfussy script, letters leaning forward like they're eager to arrive. The first line pins me to the spot. For Lena, if this is ever needed. Avery angles the desk lamp away, careful not to bleach anything. He reads without reading aloud, eyes moving, mouth making small shapes. And then he touches the date with his fingertip. Not quite touching, 1957, and beneath it, a studio address in a neighborhood I know from the recipe card I've carried like a prayer. He tilts the page toward me so I can see the name she wrote without ornament. The way you write a truth you don't want to dramatize. Ayla Linskaya. The tail on the Y is my grandmother's exact flourish. She must have written the name so many times in those days that it came out like a habit. The sentence around it blooms. Painted by my dear friend Ayla Lenskaya in her studio at... The address is the same as the one I already know, the one I've traced with my thumb so often that the ink has softened. My throat burns. Avery slides out the square. It's a photograph, not quite a Polaroid, glossy black and white with scalloped edges. My grandmother is younger than I've ever seen her, hair tucked under a headscarf, an apron smudged at the hip. She's laughing at something off camera, body angled, and behind her on the easel is the canvas that sits now on Avery's table. The same bite of blue, the same uncompromising line of the horizon, the same undersignature, only brighter, unvarnished by time. I don't realize I'm holding onto the back of the chair until my fingers ache. The photo shakes in my hand, not because I'm moving, but because everything inside me is. Avery's voice arrives like a hand at my elbow. This, he says quietly, is exactly the kind of thing you hope for and never expect. He returns to the letter, scanning, then lifts his head with a decision made. Provenance. Artist name, date, studio address. and photographic evidence with the work in situ. He draws a breath, measured, given that there were originally multiple works. He flicks a glance at me, and in it I see the porch photo, the bubble wrap, the handle a Jess finds humming like a neon sign. If the set is reunited, we're no longer an attributed to, or circle of. We are documented. He picks up his pen, his neat script printing a new line atop the estimate he wrote last week. The number changes shape. The column climbs. He pauses over the last words and writes them like he knows exactly how they land. As a documented set. It's not the jump in digits that empties my lungs. It's the way the room reorganizes itself around the word documented. Invisible threads pulling taut, from the envelope to the photo to my grandmother's careful, "For Lena." The frame stops being a frame. It becomes a container for a message she left me in the only language she trusted would survive men and time. Paper, ink, paint. Now it wasn't a maybe. It was a lineage. I slip the photo back into its paper cover. Avery resets the backing with reverence, but my mind is already crossing the city in straight lines, following an address from 1957 to a porch from last week, from a name written in my grandmother's hand to a username with a clock running out. Lineage, I think, has teeth, and I know exactly who it will bite first. Eric signs with a shaking hand. The pen clicks once, twice, then drags. His signature looks like it's trying to outrun itself across the page. First letter sharp, the rest collapsing. My attorney, Keisha, watches the ink settle. The notary's stamp comes down with a soft, wet kiss. It's astonishing how quiet the end of a storm can be. Page 3, Keisha says, turning the stack. Proceeds. Eric swallows. His jaw works. A muscle flutters near his ear. The resell, he mutters. I already sent the wire. We have the confirmation, Keisha replies. She taps the exhibit stapled behind the clause. The numbers, the timestamp, the account ending in 7132. Mine. You're also returning any remaining cash proceeds within 1 business day. He nods. He's smaller than I remember, or maybe I'm just not kneeling anymore. And these, I say, sliding over another sheet. Receipts for my conservator's deposit, the UV imaging, the solvent tests, the stretcher repairs already scheduled. You'll reimburse legal fees and conservation costs, as agreed. I keep my voice even. No quiver, no victory, just accounting. He signs again. The pen scratches like a small animal in a wall. Page 5, Keisha says. Waiver. This is the one that matters. The paragraph is dry and precise. He irrevocably waives, releases, and disclaims any present or future claims, interests, liens, or title in the artworks, including any works attributed to the Ila Linskaya School or Circle, and any fragments, studies, or companion pieces thereof, whether now discovered or later authenticated. Words like fences set deep and straight. Eric's eyes lift. Even if, what if more show up? They're mine, I say. They were always mine. He tries for a smile that doesn't land. I thought they were junk. The paper disagrees, Keisha says. He signs. The notary stamps again. Sealed, sealed, sealed. Somewhere a clock hums through the wall. The conference room smells like toner and pineapple hand sanitizer. I press my palms flat on the table to keep from smoothing the edges, from mothering the pages like I mothered those frames. Last section, Keisha says. Separation terms. This part has fewer numbers, more oxygen, boundaries in ink. He returns the house key by Friday. My studio is mine, the storage unit is mine, and my grandmother's desk is mine. He deletes any photos of the canvases and provides written confirmation. He agrees to no contact for 6 months except through counsel. No statements to the press. No hints, no subtweets, no cute little emojis. He acknowledges that violating any term triggers an automatic injunction and fees. We don't argue about love. We write about distance, Eric signs. Lena, he begins, the old softness curdled with self-pity. I didn't mean for... Keisha's glance is a velvet guillotine. We're done, I say, gentler than he deserves. Return the key. He sets it on the table. The metal leaves a quiet, ring-shaped bruise on the wood. He takes off the hoodie I once slept in and drapes it over his arm. It's not in the papers, but it feels like it is. We stand. The notary slides me the folder, heavy as a door. I trace the tab with one finger. Ownership, restitution, silence, space, the 4 corners of a room I can finally live in. In the hallway, the light is honest. My phone buzzes. An email from the conservator confirming Monday's intake. Another from the appraiser, a time to discuss provenance steps. I file both inside the folder and let the cardboard bite into my elbow. Keisha squeezes my shoulder once, a stamp without ink. Outside, the wind lifts my hair like the city is checking my pulse. I think of Grandma's steady hand, her red ground that couldn't be seen until someone tilted the canvas toward the light. The truth was always there. We just had to angle it. Paper can't fix a heart, but it can protect it. All 4 canvases breathe in my living room again. They lean against the wall like people catching their breath after running home. I've rolled the rug back and opened both windows. October light skims the paint in soft sheets. The air smells like boiled linseed, dust, and the faint citrus the conservator carries with her in a tiny brown bottle. She lays out cotton swabs and a saucer of solution on a dinner plate I've sacrificed to the cause. Her hands move the way a nurse untangles an IV. No rush, no noise, all care. "We'll start here," she says, pointing to the smallest one, the study with the blue chair and the red ground peeking through her brush strokes. "Surface grime only, old nicotine, regular life." She smiles without looking up. Regular life leaves a film. Avery stands with his arms crossed, pretending to guard the door. But really, he's just holding himself together. He wasn't here before. He's here now. The conservator touches the cotton to the corner and rolls. The swab turns the color of weak tea. A pale wake follows the tip, and suddenly the blue isn't sleepy anymore. It looks awake, like something is finally being said clearly. I didn't realize how dim I'd gotten used to everything being. I hold my breath. She rolls again, gently, like erasing a rumor. Color rises, greens inside the blue, a whisper of violet along the contour. Little decisions my grandmother made when the kettle whistled and the afternoon shifted. I feel it like a pulse in my wrist. It hits me sideways. The crying. It isn't loud. It's not even a sob. Not the kind that shakes your spine. It's just my face folding, my mouth opening like I'm letting a bird out. I'm not crying for the money people keep talking about. Not for the zeros everyone insists are at stake. I am crying because the initials on the stretcher, AL, are not just wood burned by a tool. Their breath made visible. They are her name, refusing to be swallowed. Avery's hand finds my shoulder. "Hey," he says soft like we're in a church. "Hey," I nod. "I'm fine. I'm not fine." Both are true and neither needs to be explained. When the conservator takes a break, Avery clears his throat. "Listen," he says, shifting into the tone he uses when he's about to give me very good advice I don't want to hear right away. "Before any sale, we should consider a museum loan." I blink. "A loan." "Short term," he says. "Regional museum, maybe even the university. It builds exhibition history, cements provenance. They'll publish a little note in the catalog about AL, who she studied with, maybe pull the thread on that red ground. It slows the flippers and invites the right eyes. Legacy first, money later." I look at the 4 canvases. They look back, newly bright, newly themselves. A museum wall, a brass plaque with her name. Not trapped in my living room, not trapped anywhere. The conservator lifts the small study to the window. Light goes through the top layer and catches on the ground beneath, a red that hums like a tuning fork. For a second, I swear I hear my grandmother laugh, the way she did when I got something right without being told. Legacy before liquidity. Avery's phone buzzes, and he shows me the screen. A museum email subject line with the word interest, underlined by a preview I can't read all the way. I feel the old urge to clutch everything close, to hoard the proof. Instead, I nod. "Send them the deck," I say. "Tell them the work comes home at night." The conservator turns the canvas and squints. "There's something under here," she murmurs, brushing at the margin where the paint thins. Just a hairline suggestion in the red, almost invisible until the light lifts it. Proof, or a door. Either way, it's opening. I didn't cash a fantasy. I handled a responsibility.